Because when you have a one-time use thing, it's just a container to ship the goods, so to speak. You're not really requiring it as a vessel. It's not a chashivas as a vessel. I had a very interesting question that was asked by me, thank you, by the girls up in Osmanachim where I teach. They brought in, it was 2 weeks ago, I believe. Was it 2 weeks ago? Maybe last week Friday. They brought in a jar. No, I'm confused. It wasn't last week Friday. It was 2 weeks ago Friday. They brought in a jar of dips. It was a mason jar meant to be reused, and they were going to give it out for Mishleach Manis to people, and they wanted to know, do they have to toivel it? So I said, actually, the chiyuv of Tevilah falls upon the recipient because you're sending it off as goods. Yes, the only way it's a container. It's a way to send actual goods. If the end user, the person who gets the material, gets this glass, decides to reuse it, at that point they're being coined as a vessel. Until then, it's a shipping container, so to speak. So they had a sticker on top of the dip that says, "If being reused requires tevilah." That's an interesting point. But the chiyuv of tevilah would fall upon the recipient, not the one who's shipping. So when it comes to gift companies, for example, they put together a gift that looks very, very nice, and they may have some trays. Do they have a glass tray? It's the same halacha that the one who's sending out the glass tray as the gift, they don't have the chiyuv of tevilah because they're just like a shipping company, so to speak. Yes, but the one who's receiving it and decides to use it again, at that point they're being coined as a vessel, the chiyuv of tevilah. Yeah.
One, sometimes I'm curious about to try, but sometimes I get a coffee, like in a plastic cup, like a throwaway cup from, let's say, Batiste, but then the next day I'll reuse it, like for a day or two, but I have to.
So plastic b'chalal does not have a chiyuv of tevilah, so you don't have a problem halachically. As I said, if someone wants to keep a plastic and reuse it, then there's an inyan to toivel. It's a hiddur, but it's not a chiyuv.
And then you're saying now, it's on the recipient to toivel, so I'm curious, usually girls at weddings, they get the call, a cup that says bride, and they at the wedding they use it for every time, I don't know, the bride gets thirsty, they give her a chair and they give her water. But the girl's getting what would her friends do? Can they toilet for her when they give it to her at the wedding, or should they before they give it to her?
It's a good question. See, there it's a little bit different because in the case you're asking, they're not bringing the mug or the cup, whatever it is, with contents inside. So there, if they buy it, they have in mind to buy it as a vessel, they could toivel it and then gift it to the kala. Because what I was saying before is where you're sending contents, you're shipping contents. So there, it's just being used as a shipping vessel, so to speak.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now it's only if depending on what you're giving the kala, if it's made from glass, it would have a chiyuv of tevilah. If it's made from earthenware and not glazed with glass, it would not have a chiyuv of tevilah. Okay, so now we're up to halacha tes. I kind of gave you all the secrets now, but I'll say it inside anyways. The material the raw material that the vessel is snatching from. The Torah requires tevilah only for a metal vessel. The Parshas Kleimidyan huskru rakshisha sugi mateches. In the Parsha of Kleimidyan, there's 6 metals mentioned: veim zohov, gold, kesef, silver, nechoshes, copper, barzel, iron, bedil, lead, veifash, and tin. Im kol zeh yeshayim kikol sugi mateches vayim betvil menater. Those that say that any type of metal would have a chiva tvil menater, so that would also include aluminum, for example. There are those that's different. Say only these materials are chayav b'tvilah. Aval sugim chadash, but new materials that were not mentioned in the Torah, kamei aluminum, like aluminum. Einum chayav b'tvilah min Torah. They're not chayav b'tvilah min Torah. Yesh lehistapik l'divrayim em aluminum chayav b'tvilah fil midrabana. According to that opinion, so maybe even aluminum would not even be chayav midrabanan. So in the end, what we do is, because there are different opinions about aluminum, because it's not a material that was mentioned in the Torah, there are those that say it does require tevilah, some say it does not, or maybe only rabbinically. Therefore, we do tevilah, but without a bracha, unless you're teviling some other things together that have a chiyuv of tevilah. What happens if you have a vessel that's a hybrid, made from many different materials? If most of the material is made from that which is mentioned in the Torah, then there's a chiyuv of tefillah with a bracha. If most of it's made from material that's not mentioned in the Torah, then you tell without a bracha. But earthenware, eight evan or stone or wooden, those don't need tefillah at all. So he said, earthenware vessels are made from wood without the not glazed with glass, and stoneware does not have a chiyuv of tefillah at all. Halacha Yud. Yeah, clay would not be unless it's glazed with glass. Clay zechuches, now we're on page Tadik Dalet Halacha Yud. Glass vessel. They don't have a chiyuv of tefillah min haTorah. Since the properties are somewhat similar to metal, if they break, you can then refashion it to putting it back together. They have a chiyuv of tefillah rabbanically, when we make a bracha on their tefillah. To make it clay crystal where clay zechuches, glassware, kalsinas eish, pyrex, shem zechuches, which are really glass. They have a chiyuv of tefillah. So we asked the question about plastic. Here we go inside. Halacha Yud Aleph. Didn't clean plastic. According to the reason we said before about glass, because you can melt it down or crush it up and then refire it up. Same things with plastic. You can melt plastic and then refire it up. I have a factory that makes plastic bags. Very interesting. They have pellets of unused plastic, brand new pellets, and they have certain mixtures that create a certain strength level of the plastic so it can sustain a certain amount of heat. They run the pellets through a machine. They basically melt it, and then there's a time when there's a lot of heat, and they're blowing up the liquid, and it's cooling as it blows up. So it's turning from a gas, basically like a liquid, into a solid as it's going up in a column. That's how they make plastic. Very interesting to see. How can you shame plastic bracha? You're allowed a table, so therefore we say table plastic even without a bracha. After das come a post, many posts would say that plastic does not need tefillah at all. The chenu haminag doesn't require. Me should rate lahachmed with plastic yizor shlei levarach aleim. So again, it's a hiddur. Probably a bracha. Those that want to do that, but there's no obligation to do so with plastic. Now, today we have a lot of new materials like these hybrid materials made from various substances. So we have materials today that it's difficult to ascertain their identity, where they're coming from, how they're coming from. If we should consider them to be earthenware or zechuches or glass, derech mashal, for example, sugan nikra corning. So again, it becomes a suffix because these materials have a mixture of cheres and also glass. So you should table such things without a bracha. He says here, it's interesting. He says with regards to corningware, it becomes a question whether or not if corningware is similar to glass. If you were to crush up corningware, corningware is like very strong glass that you can bake in. I think it's named after the city of Corning, New York. Corning, New York is a glass museum. I've been there many times. And they give you demonstrations. They show you how to make glass. You can actually visit there. It's a little bit of a drive. It's like 5 hours from here. But it's an interesting trip. For those of you that want to take such a trip in the summer, there's also the place 30 minutes away, 25 to 30 minutes away, called, it's some kind of gorge. It's a natural formation of rock. And there's a place to hike, and you see like cliffs, and it's very, very, very pretty. You know what it's called, 30 minutes away. Anyway, so it's like you do that as 1 day trip, do both. Okay, anyway, back to our subject. So it's a subject, it's a chayv tefillah. So some opinions say that you don't have to table it at all, because since if you were to break them apart, you wouldn't be able to put it back together. Then you wouldn't have it wouldn't be like glass. I'm not sure exactly how that works. So, in practice, I would say it's a good idea to table without a bracha. The next halach is very interesting. We're getting into the discussion about the disposable aluminum pans. In Erev Pesach, the signs in the store. These are the 9 by 13 pans your wife asked you to buy. Well, the husbands have to have it, like Kiddush Levanesius. So most people, many people use aluminum pans as a one-time use. They, you bake whatever it is, a cake, a chicken, whatever it is, and you bake it and it's done. So because it's only one-time use, it never had the chashivas of a vessel. Chashivas of a vessel means something that I want to keep. I like the design. I want to be able to reuse it. Right? Then it would need tevilah if it's made from the material that requires tevilah. But because an aluminum pan is designed to be thrown away, yes. Therefore, it does not require tevilah. But what happens if someone decides to reuse the aluminum pans? For example, you have aluminum pans that have like muffin pans. So often they're reused. So they have the recessed mold, or even a regular pan. So if a person intends on reusing it, then the rabbi spoke to about the Rabbi Epstein, the Dayan, the Rabbi Baruch, he holds that you have to title it even before you use it once. Because if you're planning on reusing it, that means that you're machshav it as a vessel now, from the get-go. But again, you would not make a bracha because it's aluminum, and we said before aluminum does not make you don't make a bracha. So if they have a hechsher, it's a good question. They have a hechsher because of the aluminum pans often are smeared with an oil, and that's the reason why it's good to have a hechsher. Even if it doesn't have a hechsher, you could still use it, although it's better to burn them out first by turning them upside down over a light flame for like 20 seconds until it starts to smoke on the other side. Now, that's the reason why it has a hechsher. If it has a hechsher, it doesn't mean that it's a Jewish company. But very likely it's going to be a non-Jewish company. So this whole idea of tevilah, if you're going to reuse it, would still apply. But again, you don't make a bracha. The vessel made from 2 different materials. One material that needs tevilah, another material that does not need tevilah. If the side, if it's chayv tevilah mitzad hachemer atzor tevilah, or pot mitzvah mitzad hachemer she'en atzor tevilah. Yesh b'zeh harbegedol. Okay. So when we have a vessel that's made from 2 different materials, some of which is chayv tevilah, some is not. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say I have a wooden salad bowl, and there are glass flowers embossed in it. Glass is not it's an example, right? You can have another material where you can have, for example, an earthenware serving dish for chicken, and it has a metal frame on the outside. That metal frame, if it's removable, for sure does not need tevilah because it doesn't touch the food. So there's a bunch of different situations. We're going to go through a bunch of different scenarios, and we're going to give you some guidelines. Okay? Halacha Yadalit. If it's made from a material that doesn't need to be titled, and it's glazed with a material that does need tevilah. There's situations where it needs tevilah, and there's situations where it does not need tevilah. According to most poskim, if the glaze touches the food, the vessel needs tevilah. If it doesn't touch the food, it does not need to be. So the example I gave you before, let's say you have a wooden salad bowl and there are glass flowers on the outside of the bowl, right, for design. There's no problem, it doesn't touch the food. Even if the glaze does touch the food, even if the glaze does touch the food, but it's not designed to help the food, it's only designed to beautify the vessel, then it still wouldn't need tefillah. This is a bigger chiddush. We're saying that if the flowers were on the inside of the vessel, even in such a case, it wouldn't need tefillah because the flowers are not the vessel. The flowers are just serving the vessel to make it look beautiful. So the net result is that a vessel only needs tefillah if two things are in place. If the material that needs tefillah is touching and serves the food, it's touching the food and also serves the food. Meaning it's touching the food, it's on the inside, and also serves the food, it's there to serve the food. So a glass glazed wooden vessel is there to serve the food. But if I have a wooden salad bowl that's not glass glazed, it's just some glass flowers in there, the flowers are not there to serve the food, they're there to serve the vessel, therefore they would be buttal to the vessel, and the vessel would not need tefillah. I'm just going to finish. I'll take your question in a moment. I just want to finish. Allah. So long as the material that needs tefillah is not touching the food or does not serve the food, then that material is not serving in a fashion, in a way of klei suda. Therefore, it does not need tefillah. Is that clear?
Question was like, with this kid, like, let's say flowers on the outside, that practically we would just still table without a bracha, or like with something that we have a bracha.
No, if it has flowers on the outside, you for sure don't have to table it.
Yeah, but I'm saying like don't practically would table it anyway, just without a bracha.
No.
Oh no.
Not in that case. No. We table something out of without a bracha when there's a suffix if you have to table or not. When the glass is only on the outside, there's no suffix you don't have to table it. So for sure you don't have to table it. We know for sure you don't have.
Is glass something you can table it?
We table glass midrabanan rabbinically. It's a chiyuv. Can you make a bracha also?
But also, do we like assume like most like mugs have a glass glaze?
It's a good question. I think from what I understand, many years ago it used to be that way. But today they have a lot of different composite materials that they use, synthetic materials, to achieve the same kind of glaze finish and the same kind of and all that. And it might even be a better finish and a better seal. So what I recommend people do is, if possible, when you buy something today, right, especially if you're buying on the internet, things have serial numbers. They have like you have a brand, yes, plus you a product and a product identification system. If you go on the website of that company, the manufacturer, they'll have what's called a spec sheet. A spec sheet will detail exactly how this product is made, what it's made from. So if it says that, so you try to search what the glaze is made from. If it's not made from glass, made from some other synthetic materials, then it would not need to be. If you have a suffix, then table without a bracha, or table together with a vessel that does have a teeth.
We also sorry, because like that happened to my friend. We had a mug and we like it was from Target, so we looked online and we saw it was glazed, but like we couldn't tell what the glaze was made from. But I had like a metal thing to table, so like I made a bracha when I tabled, and she just said I made it tabled after me. Like, can she?
That's good, yeah.
Okay.
That's good, yeah, because then you're doing it together, and you have the bracha there. You have in mind to be yoytze the suffix.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it if you have the option. Okay, well, up to halacha tezayin. Then I have a story about tabling vessels. The vessel it's made from earthenware that's glazed with glass as a chiv of tvila. The a porcelain vessel. That's earthenware that's glazed with glass also has a chiv of tvila. Since there are those that say it doesn't need tvila. Here's the table bracha. Table without a bracha.
That's fun.
Did I skip this one?
I think so. He talks about like two different materials and.
You're right, I skipped it, I apologize. The result is that any vessel that's glazed with glass or metal from the inside, if it's only glazed from the outside, then it does not need Tevilah. Some say that even if the vessel is glazed only from inside, you don't make the bracha. A vessel that is glazed from inside and outside, doesn't matter whether or not the glaze is thick or thin, whether or not the vessel was usable before the glaze or after the glaze. So he's saying in this halacha that when something is glazed with glass, you would toivel without a bracha, but you should toivel it. In the case you brought down where you're toiveling something that with metal, you're sure you should then make the bracha on the metal and have that in mind. So Tazayin is really going into this one step further. An earthenware vessel that's glazed with glass is chayav b'tevila. Porcelain vessel that's glazed with glass is chayav b'tevila. Since there are those that say it's pater from tevila, yesh l'tavel b'lei bracha. You tavel without a bracha. Any questions on what I said so far? Okay.
So if it's like glass glaze, we do without a bracha? Wow. But it's not like actually a glass thing.
If it's only glazed on the inside, if it's glazed on the outside, then you table with a bracha.
Oh, but
So it's saying it's both.
on the outside.
Yeah, I think usually that when it's glazed with glass, it's usually glazed on both sides. Oh, not necessarily. Sometimes only one, right? I've seen both. Seen both. If it's glazed on the outside and the inside, you make a bracha. If it's made from glass, if it's only on the inside, then you don't make a bracha, but you still table.
And if it's just the outside?
Then you don't table at all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tell you a story about Tevilas Keilim. I think it happened with Rabbi Sadia Goin, one of the great Torah scholars from hundreds of years ago. He was tabling his vessels out of Pesach. It's a timely story. He was there with his students. He went to the ocean, and he brought his vessels there to table because he had new vessels for Pesach. And he tabled them. A wave came and swept them away. And he was happy that you know the story. You know this story? Oh, you know already? Okay, everybody knows the story.
Not everybody
Okay,
here.
sorry. Okay, so I'll just repeat it. I forgot I told it. So he was happy. He was very happy. His students were very puzzled. The next year he came, and same rabbi with his students. He went to table new vessels for Pesach, and along came a wave, and brought back his vessels that he lost from the year before, and he also successfully tabled the new vessels, and he got last year's vessels as well, and he was sad. So his students said to him, Rabbi, this is Torah, we need to learn what's going on, and what's the message here. So he said, very simple, last year, there was Pesach, and a wave came, swept away my vessels. I knew that my mazel couldn't get any worse. So I was happy because I know things are going to be on the up and up. But this year, when I come out of Pesach, and not only will I successfully table my new vessels, but last year's vessels come up and show up exactly the time I'm there, I said, your mazel can't get any better. It's going to go down from now. So that's why I was sad. This is a very good lesson, by the way. The Frierdiker Rebbe said, I think a lashon, that when someone's at the bottom of the barrel, the only way to go is up. So we all have our struggles. And when we're feeling, down at a certain point, when we hit rock bottom, right? When we feel the nothingness, then we're going to go up. So it's a good perspective. It's like a shot of joy. Okay, halacha yud zayin. If the vessel is made in the opposite way, the vessel was made from material that needs tevila, and with tzupa b'chay mashin tzarich tevila. It's glazed with something that doesn't need tevila. Okay, so we have. It's made from something that needs tevila. Let's say it's made from metal, and then it's glazed with a composite material. Since the food does not touch anything, it's only touching material that does not need Tevila. Okay, he's going to give another example. That's a covered metal. That's the white covered metal that you have like on stovetops. Or if it's got Teflon on the inside. It's an anti-stick material. On page Sadik Ches. In such a case, you take without a bracha. If the vessel is glazed with something just for beautification purposes, so let's say I have a metal vessel, and then it's got a color on it, but the color is only to beautify the vessel, then the color would be considered bottle to the vessel, and since the vessel would need tevila, you would have to tevel this vessel.
Then you do it with the book.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a few principles. I just want to review them. The Torah teaches us that any beautification per instrument on a vessel is bottled to the vessel because it's there to serve the vessel. So we ask ourselves, is this vessel the type of vessel that would require tevila or not? If it requires tevila, then you tevel it. If it does not require tevila, you don't have to tevel it. Even if the beautification instrument, let's say it's glass flowers, even though glass is mechuyev tefillah, since it's not there to serve the food, considered to be bottled to the vessel. There's another very interesting halach. I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago about the lennox, right? So lennox is a fancy type of crystal. So normally when you go to the store and buy yourself a vessel, you go to Target, it's $3.99, $5.99, $7.99, whatever it is, you take off the sticker and take off the glue, because it's not something you're looking to advertise to all your friends. But a Lennox vessel has this like nice sticker in the front, an oval sticker. It's like Shivas, this is a Lennox dish, not stam. I'm from the fancy people, etc. So that type of sticker is bottled to the vessel because it's part of the chashivas of the vessel. Normally we say that the sticker is a chatzitza, it's getting in the way of the tefillah, right? You only have the sticker there to tell you the price. But here the sticker is part of the chashivas of the vessel. It's the brand, it's the insignia, then it's part of the vessel. Interesting how Allah looks at things, right? It's serving the vessel. I'm going to go out on a limb now and show you how. In a similar way, a shliach without a shlichus and has a whole community, and they're going to Mesiras Nefesh to build Yiddishkeit, right? Whatever they need is for the community. That's the homahos. That's the whole essence. It's bottled to the cause. It's the cause. It's just a similar concept. Okay. It's made from two separate pieces. The example I gave you before was you have this serving tray, like an oval serving tray with a metal frame. A vessel that's made from two different materials that are connected. One part needs tevila, glass. Another part does not need tevila. For example, water, plastic. If the majority of the vessel is made from metal, or another type of material that needs tevila, needs tevila, because we're going after the ikr, the majority of the vessel. If plastic, if most of it is made from plastic, it's required tevila. Both these tanoim are in place. Number one, one could not use the vessel without the metal. The metal is touching the food. If the vessel is not touching the metal, if the food is not touching the metal, or you can use the vessel without the metal, I feel even if the metal is touching the food, then the kli does not need to be alone. So we're going to get into case of a handle of a knife. Okay, in base yard also be plastic. A lot of knives, the handle portion is made from plastic, or could be made from wood. Or another kind of metal instrument like a utensil, that the handle is made from plastic or wood, because the part that touches the food is metal, and therefore that would have the chashivas. And the same would be a grinder. The actual housing unit is made from wood. The actual grinding portion is made from metal. So then the metal part would need tevila. But again, if it comes apart, then you don't have to table the housing unit. You just take it apart and table the metal parts. The same will be with the Cuisinart, by the way. The Cuisinart has a plastic housing unit. Plastic, we said, there's no chiv of tefillah. If you want to be machmir, you can do it. But the chiv of tefillah is on the blades, those cutting blades. Cuisinart, food processor, right? So you have the housing unit that holds the food, and they have the cover. Those are usually plastic today. And the actual spinning mechanism is the blade. Those have to be toiveled. Toast is a very interesting question. So there's two types of toasters that are typical types of toasters. One type of toaster is actually more contemporary. It's like a mini oven. It has a shelf. You put bread in there, put pizza in there. You could make all kinds of food. Some of them are even bigger. They're like they can be like convection ovens. So those shelves in the toaster do need tevila because it's the norm to actually put food directly on them. You'll put bread on them, you'll toast, etc. But the toaster itself, you don't have to table because it's not the derech, it's not there to touch the food. It's just a rack. It's made out of metal. What about those vertical toasters, the ones that were around many, many years ago? I don't know if you remember them. My generation, I remember as a kid, they had them vertical, like they hold two slices of bread, you press down, and then 5 minutes later it goes, boop, pops up, and then it rings. It's got a casing unit there. So that's only meant for bread. You're going to put, let's say you put the pizza in there, it's going to get all liquidy, it's going to mess up the whole machine. It's only designed for bread, more limited. So, such a toaster, you can't really table it. It's not so easy to table it, although I can't say you can't table it. You could table it and then let it dry out for 3 days by turning it upside down. But Moshe Feinstein has a very interesting response on this matter. I saw it in Shul. I was reading through one of his forum. He holds that because this toaster is only designed to toast existingly edible food, it's not called Klei Suda. It's like a browning unit. It's like a they have these things where you can mark put grill mark. It's like a grill mark. It's grill marks. It's like a food enhancer. It doesn't actually make the food ready. It was ready already. Interesting perspective. Not everybody agrees with that. So if possible, it's best to table such a thing and then turn it upside down. But it's not possible, you can rely on that. Yeah.
You covered this last class, but if we total and then there's kosher. So you cook for the kosher item, even that's not total, what's the status?
We did cover it early on, but it's a good question. I'll review it. If someone used a vessel that's kosher, a brand new vessel that was not toiveled, it's not proper to do so, but the food is still kosher to eat. There's another halacha that if a vessel is not kosher and was bought from a non-Jew, the proper way to do things is first you kosher the vessel, and then you toivel it. If somebody reversed the order and toiveled it and then koshered it, then we say you should toivel again without a bracha. We're going to learn about that at the end of our halachas, probably in February next week, or hopefully we'll get there soon, maybe a week or two later. And the answer to that question is that there is such an eitzah, such a possibility, It's not something that we do ordinarily. We'd only do it in a case where we have no other option. So it's mutter in the case of the Be'evet, because a vessel owned by a non-Jew does not require Tevilah. So if you gift it to a non-Jew, then you just borrow it back, right? But the problem with this method is that you're forgoing and losing an opportunity to make a bracha. It's not something that we want to set up and do. I remember during COVID, the Rabbanim issued a letter. It's hard to get the mikvahs. I don't know, people have all these concerns. But they said that people could utilize this option. Does that mean the time is up? 2 more minutes though. I'll close that. Dismiss that. Okay. So Allah Aleph gets into a blender. Lasikach blender, which is also a Cuisinart or a what they call those, a food processor. Anything that you take food and you liquefy it, you purify it, puree it, excuse me, not purify it. You use the word jum, I don't think it's a proper word in English, but you table the parts that are made from metal, or glass, that have iron in them. That's what you use to actually grind up. The other materials are they're made from material. It doesn't need Tevilah. Even if they're made from metal, they don't touch the food. They don't need Tevilah. One more halacha. The obligation is only by Klei Suda. Since the Parsha of Klei Midyan is involved with Klei Suda, vessels that are used for a meal. Anything that comes into contact with fire, you only use fire for vessels for food use. But that Parsha was talking about the vessels, the loot of Midyan, talking about the vessels that they used to cook with. That's where the source of Tevilah comes from. Therefore, only vessels that are used in the context of preparation of food have a chiyuv of Tevilah. So therefore, a hammer, a saw, a screwdriver, a drill bits do not need Tevilah because they're not Klei Suda. You're going to ask, what about if I use the hammer to open a coconut? Yes, I don't think you have to toivel it because it's not the derech to do that. It's not designed for that. If you're meyached the knife, if you're going to have a certain hammer that you're going to keep in your house, let's say you're in the business of selling coconuts and you're going to use it on a routine basis, then you're actually designated a Klei Suda. But if it really belongs on the workbench and you happen to get a coconut once in a while, yes, and you could really do something else, use another vessel, I don't think you need to deal with that because you're not being meyached as Klei Suda. Yeah. We just said that, for example, your test would speak about a knife that's made from a plastic handle and a metal blade. So we're going after what's touching the food. The food is being touched by the metal, therefore the chiyuv Tevilah, even though 50% of the vessel may be plastic, because the plastic is just the handle. Then chav is if you have a material, something like an immersion blender where you have removable parts. Only the parts that touch the food have to be toiveled. You can detach the motor and just toivel the actual metal insert that touches the food. That's by the way, I'm going to stop here and can you just write that down? Thank you. But I want to just point something out. When you're shopping for utensils and appliances, this is an Eitzah table. I call it like a kosher living hack. If you're buying, for example, a sandwich maker, get one with removable plates. Then you don't have to deal with the whole thing of immersing the whole thing in water and leaking out and whatever, Just removable plates, that's all you have to table. And the same with an immersion blender. If it has removable parts, the motor is on top, and the part that actually touches the food is removable. That's the most easy way to deal with all these halachas. Because otherwise you get into questions, you have to table it, and it's electronic, and you have to dry it out, and say a few prayers and all that. The whole thing. Jewish people do it anyway, but yeah.
You're saying like if people want, they can throw plastic without a bracha, or like, what's it, you know, the bracha, like the hiddur and this one.
Yeah.
That's only plastic, like things like wood, things, if it's plastics is something, like wood that we for sure know.
Only plastic is the suffix. Wood for sure you don't have to, therefore there's no inyan table.
Okay, fine.
Only something with the suffix is an inyan to do to table as a hiddur without a bracha.
Thank you.
A good Shabbos, and we're up to halacha chaf gimel. What's it made out of? Made out of wood for sure not. It's made out of plastic. Again, you get that same question. And that will be the answer. Storage vessels are a suffix, actually, because it's not something you're actually handling with and cooking. Okay, we can talk more on this. Sure. Yes.
Well, I'm going away with my grandmother and my mom, and we were talking about like different options. Different country, like we're going to visit my grandparent, like my grandma in South Africa, and we're going away with her. And my mom was like, "Oh, maybe you can just listen to that voice note from Rabbi Hanoka about cluttering